In a world obsessed with constant growth, happiness, and success, Mark Manson flips the script with the subtle art of not giving a feck. He shatters the typical positive thinking mantra, boldly suggesting that true fulfillment isn't about giving more FCKs, it's about giving fewer FEs about things that don't matter. Manson invites us to embrace the reality that life is messy, painful, and full of challenges. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Instead of chasing perfection or trying to avoid discomfort, Manson teaches us how to choose the right values that make the inevitable struggles worthwhile. He challenges us to confront our mortality, choose our suffering wisely, and focus on what truly aligns with who we are at our core. Through this lens, we realize that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning to endure the right kind of pain to achieve personal growth and lasting satisfaction. The subtle art doesn't offer empty feel-good advice. It's a raw, no-holds-barred guide to living with intention and authenticity. By embracing uncertainty, questioning our beliefs, and letting go of societal expectations, Manson gives us the freedom to live on our own terms, unburdened by the constant pressure to be more, do more, and have more. In the end, it's not about trying to be happy all the time. It's about choosing what truly matters and letting everything else fall away. Chapter 1. Don't try. In the first chapter, Manson challenges what we've been taught about success and happiness. We're constantly bombarded with the message that we should be striving for more success, more happiness, more achievement. But Manson calls bullshit on that. He points out that this constant pursuit of perfection actually leads to frustration and burnout. Instead of obsessing over the idea of being better, he suggests a radical shift. Focus on your values, not your goals. Happiness isn't found in constant growth or avoiding discomfort. It's found in choosing the things you're willing to struggle for, the things that are truly important to you. Manson's point? The more you chase after external success, the more empty it feels. True fulfillment, he argues, comes when you choose to focus on the things that align with your authentic values. Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem. Here's a mind-blowing thought from Manson. Happiness is overrated. That's right. He says that the more we chase happiness, the more elusive it becomes. But the twist? He doesn't leave us in despair. Instead, Manson reframes happiness. It's not about getting rid of all your problems, but about choosing the right problems to care about. The truth is, problems are inevitable. The question is, what kind of problems do you want to have? Manson makes it clear. The secret to a fulfilling life is not in avoiding struggles, but in embracing the challenges that bring you closer to your goals. When you pick the right problems, ones that align with your values, you're not just surviving life, you're growing through it. Chapter 3. You are not special. This chapter kicks off with a brutal truth. You're not as special as you think. It sounds harsh, but stick with Manson here. We live in a world where everyone's told they're destined for greatness, but Manson argues that this mindset only feeds entitlement and unrealistic expectations. In a culture that constantly pushes us to believe we're unique and exceptional, we often ignore our own flaws and mistakes. But when we can face the reality that we're just one person in a sea of billions, it allows us to stop chasing empty ideals. Manson's take? Embrace your imperfections, accept that you have limitations, and stop trying to be everything to everyone. It's liberating. When you let go of the need to be special, you free yourself to live authentically, and that's where true freedom lies. Chapter 4. The value of suffering. Get ready for a shift in perspective. Suffering is inevitable, and it's actually a critical part of living a meaningful life. Manson explains that life is full of pain, but not all suffering is created equal. The key is in choosing your suffering wisely. Whether it's the pain of hard work, the discomfort of facing your flaws, or the challenges of meaningful relationships, suffering is always a part of the deal. But here's the catch. If you choose your values right, the suffering you endure will be worth it. Manson uses the example of people who are passionate about their careers or health. They're willing to endure long hours, sacrifices, and setbacks, but they do so because their values drive them. When you pick the right values, you're essentially choosing the kind of suffering you'll endure. The pain of growth becomes your reward, and it makes all the difference. Chapter 5. You are always choosing. In this chapter, Manson makes a point that's both empowering and liberating. You are always choosing. Even when it feels like life is happening to you, you're still making choices about how to respond. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you have control over how you react to it. Manson explains that responsibility doesn't mean you're to blame for everything. It simply means that you can choose your response to life's challenges. If you lose your job, you can choose to wallow in self-pity. Or you can choose to take action and move forward. It's up to you. The power lies in owning your choices, and by doing so, you take control of your life. This ability to choose how you respond, no matter the circumstances, is what gives you true agency and freedom. Chapter 6. You're wrong about everything, but so am I. This chapter is all about embracing uncertainty and questioning everything. Manson argues that life is full of contradictions, and none of us have all the answers. The moment we start thinking we're right about everything is the moment we stop growing. Manson invites us to challenge our assumptions, our beliefs, and even our most deeply held truths. He believes that true growth comes from being open to the fact that we might be wrong. Think about it. If you never question your beliefs, how can you grow? The world is constantly changing, and by admitting that we don't have all the answers, we open ourselves up to new ideas and experiences. Manson's message is simple. Embrace being wrong. It's the key to becoming a better, more authentic version of yourself. Chapter 7. Failure is the way forward. If you've ever been afraid of failure, Manson is about to change your perspective. In this chapter, he reframes failure as a necessary part of the process, not something to be avoided at all costs. Instead of seeing failure as a setback, Manson urges us to view it as feedback. Failure is the only way we learn, grow, and eventually succeed. Every time you fail, you're collecting data on what works and what doesn't. So, don't fear failure. Embrace it. Manson explains that the most successful people didn't get there by avoiding failure. They got there by failing repeatedly, learning from their mistakes, and using those lessons to propel themselves forward. In fact, failure is the pathway to success. The more you fail, the more you learn, and the closer you get to your goals. Chapter 8. The importance of saying no. This chapter is a game changer. Saying no isn't just about rejecting requests. It's about setting boundaries and protecting your energy. In a world where we're often expected to say yes to everything, Manson teaches us that saying no is a powerful act of self-respect. When you say yes to everything, you're stretching yourself too thin and diluting your focus. But when you say no, you're conserving your time and energy for the things that truly matter. Saying no is how you prioritize what aligns with your values and goals. Manson challenges us to stop trying to please everyone. Instead, focus on what's truly important to you, and don't be afraid to turn down things that don't serve your purpose. It's a key part of living with intention and focus. Chapter 9. And then you die. This chapter takes a bold approach. Manson encourages us to think about death, not as a morbid obsession, but as a liberating force. When you realize that your time is limited, it forces you to confront what really matters. Too often we get caught up in distractions and insignificant goals, forgetting that time is the one thing we can never get back. By accepting that we will eventually die, we gain clarity about how we want to live. Manson suggests that this awareness of death is what helps us prioritize our choices. If you knew your time was running out, what would you stop caring about? What would you start caring about more? Death, in this sense, becomes a tool for making more intentional decisions and living a life that reflects your true values. Chapter 10. The good news. You're wrong about everything. Again. Let's start with a powerful truth. You're wrong about everything. Yep, you heard that right. Manson drops this bombshell in Chapter 10 to get us thinking. It's not that you're a failure. It's that all of us have a limited understanding of the world. We live under the assumption that we've got life figured out, but the truth is, we're all walking around with incomplete maps. Manson pushes us to embrace the uncertainty of life and to admit that we could be wrong at any moment. When we stop pretending to have all the answers, we free ourselves up for growth and self-improvement. This isn't a bad thing. In fact, the most successful people are the ones who can constantly adapt, learn, and question their beliefs. Instead of clinging to rigid ideas, Manson encourages us to remain open-minded and embrace the chaos. The magic happens when we accept that it's okay not to have everything figured out. Chapter 11. And then you choose your values. Now let's talk about values. What are yours? Seriously, what are the things you care about the most? In this chapter, Manson argues that choosing your values is one of the most important things you can do. But here's the catch. Not all values are created equal. The right values aren't about chasing status or fame. They're about things that reflect what matters to you, like integrity, kindness, and the pursuit of personal growth. Manson highlights that we often adopt values that are shallow or externally influenced, things like being rich, popular, or perfect. But these values don't lead to fulfillment. What you choose to value dictates the type of life you live. If you focus on values that truly resonate with you, life becomes more meaningful because your actions align with who you are at your core. So, if you're stuck on shallow aspirations, it's time to reevaluate your values. What will you really be proud of at the end of your life? Choose wisely. Chapter 12. The freedom of not giving a fuck. Alright, let's talk freedom. Real freedom. It's not the kind where you can do whatever you want or avoid pain, but the kind that comes from choosing what to care about. Manson argues that true freedom is being able to decide what you're willing to struggle for. In other words, you don't need to give a feck about everything. Once you figure out what really matters to you, you can let go of all the rest. This is where the magic happens. By cutting out distractions and focusing on what truly aligns with your values, you free yourself from the burden of trying to please everyone. You're not stuck running around chasing every little opportunity. Instead, you're making conscious choices about what you're willing to fight for, what's worth your time, energy, and attention. It's about knowing that the right struggles lead to meaningful growth and satisfaction. Chapter 13. The realization that you're already dead. Here's where Manson goes full-on existential. In this chapter, he drops a truth bomb that might make you uncomfortable. You're already dead. What? How can that be empowering, right? Well, Manson suggests that once we accept our mortality, we actually get freedom. Death is inevitable, so why not use it as a tool to sharpen our focus? When you realize your time is finite, you stop wasting it on trivial things that don't matter. You start asking yourself, what do I really want to do with the time I have left? Manson challenges you to confront death head-on, not in a depressing way, but as a motivator. When you understand that every moment counts, you can start living with more urgency and clarity. You get to decide how to spend the time you have, and that decision shapes your life's meaning. This awareness doesn't make you fearful, it makes you powerful, and it shifts how you approach every single choice you make. Chapter 14. The Legacy of Suffering. The next chapter is all about suffering, but not in the way you might think. Manson suggests that suffering is a universal part of life, but what really matters is what kind of suffering you choose to endure. Life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about choosing which pain is worth your time. Whether it's the discomfort of working long hours for a meaningful career, or the emotional pain of building deep relationships, the suffering you endure can lead to personal growth. In this chapter, Manson asks the crucial question, what will your suffering create? If you choose suffering rooted in your values, that pain becomes part of your legacy. If you chase things that don't matter, like superficial success, you'll end up with suffering that feels empty and unfulfilling. So, instead of avoiding pain, Manson urges you to choose your suffering wisely. What struggles will lead you to a life worth living? That's the key to a meaningful legacy. Chapter 15. The Importance of Saying No. Part 2. Saying no. It's a game changer. If you didn't get it the first time, Manson brings it back here. Saying no isn't just about rejecting things, it's about protecting your most precious resource, time. In a world that demands we say yes to everything, Manson gives you permission to start saying no. No to things that drain you, no to people who take more than they give, and no to commitments that aren't in line with your values. Saying no is powerful. It's a way to assert control over your life and focus on what really matters. The truth is, if you don't establish boundaries, you'll be pulled in a million different directions and lose sight of what you actually want to accomplish. So start practicing the art of saying no. It's how you carve out time for the things that will truly lead to a fulfilling life. Chapter 16. And then you die. Again. Manson wraps up the book with one final reflection. Death. But this time he takes it one step further. He encourages us to live our lives as though we're already dead. Not in a morbid way, but in a way that helps us prioritize what really matters. When you remember that time is limited, you stop getting bogged down by the trivial things. Manson's challenge here is to recognize the urgency of life. What do you want to spend your limited time on? What do you want to leave behind? In this final chapter, Manson urges you to focus on what truly matters, because the clock is ticking. Confronting death head-on gives us the ultimate freedom to live with intention, to prioritize what's most meaningful, and to create a legacy that will outlast us.